bragging, you gotta wait. Ain't no capping, I'm on a date. Money on my mind, it gotta stay. Yeah, I'm on my grind, I can't relate. Chasing dreams, yeah, there's no delay. Why you laughing? No time to play. Showing love, yeah, no need to hate. I'm on time now, I'm never late.
So it is finally time to do Giyu matchup tier list, and as the Giyu guru himself, I'm surprised that I never did this before, even pre-patch. So with the new update for how Giyu is now, with the proper buffs that he received, and I've been fighting against the other characters that got buffed as well, and all his bad matchups, Giyu actually performs way better now than before, and now I get to finally show you. But first we're going to start off with his matchups before the buffs, so you guys can see how the tier list will look like in the first place. Now obviously you can see Giyu at the top. You got his free matchups where you should be dominating these characters with Giyu. Then you got the ones in his favor, not as dominant, but it's still in his favor. You got his even matchups, his bad matchups, and his terrible matchups. By the way, this is a pre-patch list. I know you guys see it on the screen. This is how overall the tier list will look like for now the latest update. So first off, we're going to start off with his free matchups this balance patch, which pretty much didn't change, just added more characters to that perspective tier. So now we're going to start off with his free matchups. Obviously the regular Nosuke, Makomo, Murata, especially Rengoku, they kind of don't really do nothing to Giyu before, and they don't do anything to him now. Water Tanjiro and Sakonji were in his favorable matchups before, but Water Tanjiro and Sakonji Water Will is like so predictable, and it's kind of slow, and now that Dead Calm lasts even longer now, you are most likely like to hit them with Dead Calm. So yeah, they moved up to free matchups. Yushiro, you can't Dead Calm his DP anymore, but you can still Dead Calm a lot of his skills, so it's still free for him. Awaken Nezuko, she's very like super punishable, and if she even dares throw anything out extra, Giyu can easily Dead Calm it. So that's pretty much self-explanatory. I'm pretty sure everybody knew this is kind of like his free matchup so far. Now we're moving on to his more favorable matchups, and surprisingly Shinobu moved from free to favorable. Giyu still wins the matchup, even though she got buffed, and before she couldn't really do that much damage, and she took a lot of damage. Her taking a lot of damage is still the same, her risk is still the same versus Giyu, but she just does a little bit more damage now, and I've been playing against some really good Shinobu players that know how to utilize her tools correctly, and it's still pretty difficult to go against her now, especially since her damage is pretty good now. But yeah, Giyu still wins the matchup obviously, but Shinobu definitely improved as well. Inosuke still the same, he's still in a favorable matchup. Giyu still punishes him a lot on his stuff, but it's not free, but he definitely beats Inosuke. Now Yahaba. Now if you guys paid attention to my pre-patch tier list, you noticed that Yahaba was on his terrible matchups, but now he's on his favorable because Giyu became faster. Now you're probably thinking, how does his dash speed increase have him move Yahaba that like from terrible to favor? The thing is, Giyu always, like I said, Giyu had a good water will. He pretty much, once you're in his range, he can pretty much dominate that area with the water will. It becomes a little bit unpredictable. Now the thing is, Giyu was too slow to even get in on Yahaba in the first place to even do the water will. So now that he's fast enough, he can do water will and keep up the pace in between the mid range and close range, just applying a lot of pressure on Yahaba. So Yahaba now is in Giyu's favor. It's pretty amazing. I love it. I love it. Now it's time for Giyu's even matchups, and this is kind of the one that changed a lot for the most part. Most of these characters here were part of his bad matchups, but now they moved to even. Now with Gotaro, he's still the same. He's still even. If you don't understand, Giyu has a really good heavy check to check Gotaro since he has no cancels. Also, Gotaro players like to mash a lot anyways. His normals are pretty cracked, so you can get in a Dead Calm now since it lasts longer. But when his hitboxes on his mash and his other skills are so, it's kind of crazy to the point where it'll knock Giyu out of doing water will or constant flux and etc. So that's why I kind of make it as a even matchup for the most part, because we all know Giyu, when it comes to his water wheel and stuff, it can be a bit inconsistent. People dashing you out of it, mashing you out of it, grabbing you out of it, etc. So yeah, Tengen was a bad matchup before, only because Giyu had the level 1 speed, and it was kind of annoying to approach Tengen as Giyu, because he could just string performance you any second. Like, it was kind of ridiculous. But now Giyu's kind of faster now, he can kind of keep up. And the only thing is that if you start up Water Wheel at the same time as string performance, Water Wheel will lose 100% of the time. But other than that, like I said, Giyu has a good heavy check. He could also dead calm. Think of it as when these two characters go against each other, they're afraid to approach each other. They're afraid to make the first move first. You know what I mean? And for Zenitsu, he was bad because obviously Giyu was slow to catch him. Zenitsu got like the best side dashing in the game. So Giyu was it was hard to catch him. Plus he could push block air spin his water wheel, so that was kind of the only unfortunate part. But now that Giyu's faster, he can keep up with him now, and he can punish some random TCFs if he would like. HK, Blood Eye Tundra is still the same. I never thought they were even a problem pre-patch for Giyu. It's just can be a bit annoying approaching the two, but water wheel can still beat most of their options, if not all of them, and Giyu's dead calm comes in clutch in those matchups. Now, Nezuko and Akaza. Now, I know people will probably think it's a hot take, but I promise you it's not. With Nezuko, she was bad matchup because obviously Giyu's speed did play a part of it, but now Nezuko is nerfed and Giyu can now push block and dead calm her heal bash now more frequently, because you could do it before, but the timing was so hard because of her heal bash hitbox. It was pretty ridiculous. But now that Nezuko is nerfed, she's more like you're able to do her now, because Claws would beat all of Giyu options before, but now that she's nerfed and Giyu's faster, it's not as bad as it was before. And same with Akaza, the only reason why he was a bad matchup is because Giyu was slow. He couldn't catch Akaza. Akaza can zone Giyu out if he wanted to, force Giyu to try to do a water wheel and neutral, and then he can easily punish, baiting out a dead calm. But now Akaza really can't do that because Giyu can keep up. He can dash Akaza, water wheel, and stay in that range that makes Akaza uncomfortable. So that is why Giyu can now fight Akaza and is no longer a losing matchup. Hopefully you guys kind of understand. But as the Giyu guru himself, I don't find Akaza a big threat anymore. Besides, he got nerfed on his air types, so he can't even zone out for eternity, and he don't get that much off of it. And Giyu's a tank and doesn't take that much damage. So it's a win-win for this patch for Giyu. But yeah, these are his even matchups. Now it's time for the final tier, basically his bad matchups. And you probably surprised, like, wait, final? They're still terrible. But as you can see, all the characters have been placed on the tier list. Like I said, I don't think Giyu has any more terrible matchups anymore due to the balance patch. And now the buffs that he got, he's a pretty strong character. He's S tier in my opinion, and I cannot wait till I do the tier list video and place him where I think he is right now currently, who uses Giyu at the full capabilities that, you know, he's able to do. So these are his bad matchups. Now, you're probably surprised about Rui, you know, Daki, and all that, right? I'll tell you this one thing. I know it's probably late for me to even explain this, but basically as Giyu, as a point character, right, without trying to rely on switch tech, Giyu can fight solo for a pretty long time before he needs to even switch tech for the most part. And now that he can save resources in his combos now, he's able to fight more solo than anything. But when it comes to Giyu's weaknesses, the true weaknesses to Giyu is characters that can push, block, mash. Rui, Daki, and Enmu gives Giyu an extremely hard time because Giyu's best skill to get in is his water wheel. His dash is also good as well, but characters that can just sit there and block and push block mash you is way easier than trying to push block lunge you, and push block mashing just shuts down Giyu entirely. It basically forces you to switch tech, like you gotta basically use more resources to keep yourself safe. So Rui, Daki, and Enmu is pretty tough. Now Enmu did receive a nerf, and he's fast enough to catch him on ending lag more often now, so that's good. But it's still, if you want to risk throwing out water wheel, you're probably going to get punished 9 times out of 10 against a good Enmu. Same with Daki and Rui. Now with Daki, you can dead calm her, but it's still pretty risky to do so. You can still heavy check her, but you're probably going to be heavy switch teching a lot to stop her from mashing and trying to bait out her skills and etc. So I wouldn't count these as an even or a good matchup for Giyu. You're going to be relying more on switch tech versus these characters. Rui is another sleeper character that he's pretty good. The thing is, there's no good Ruis. There's not a lot of good Ruis. There's probably maybe one that exists right now or two. That will show you the full capabilities of Rui. Rui is still kind of menacing to certain slayers, and Giyu is kind of one of them to a degree. So yeah, that's with those three. Now, Susumaru and Edie Zenitsu. Now, a lot of people in the community now has been talking about how Susumaru is, how she's, you know, kind of OP and the best character in the game, which I do agree. But Giyu can now fight her. The reason why I have her as a bad matchup is because when Giyu does Water Wheel, she has the best mobility in the game in terms of her skills. Makes her move around and dodge, you know, so she can tilt skill away from Water Wheel and get an easy punish. That's the only bad thing. But Giyu, you definitely need a really good assist like Zenitsu or Edie Zen to fight Susumaru. Nobody else, to be honest, and that'll be the best matchups for Giyu. Now, Edie Zenitsu speaks for himself. He's the best player in the game. I don't think he even has any losing matchups at all. He pretty much just has the best whiff punishing skill in the game. So if you even whiff Water Wheel, do constant flux, any of that, and he has a level 3 dash, he can punish Giyu pretty easily. So that's pretty much it for the bad matchups for Giyu. So thank you guys for watching. As the Giyu guru himself, this is what I truly believe, that these are his matchups. And if you pick up Giyu, this is a good list to watch, and hopefully my explanation was enough. If you got any more questions or want to talk about anything else, you can say anything in the comments and we could talk about it. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
Not so long ago, there ain't nothing left, and your feelings now seeming so upset. Looking back now, wish we never met. In the mirror now, keep myself in check. Cause every time that I guess, living with the pain always stabbing my chest.